Mark. Hello Transport Evolved. It's Friday already. You see my car just went, what? Yes, I'm sitting in a Chevrolet Volt wearing a Nissan Leaf t-shirt, I know. But I thought I'd just record this thought of the day really quickly before I go and run some errands. I really liked that you liked my idea of dongles. We should do that. And I think that the reason behind it is that we don't have a good metric for ascertaining how much a vehicle is going to cost people. And at the end of the day, it's all about money. So we need to be using money as the metric so that people understand it. If I needed a charge and someone was stopped at a slow charging on a rapid charging station, I would just ask them to move. I think I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. I just asked them to move. And I've actually asked Leaf drivers who are at like 98% before, who refuse to move on, Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think you're right. Every socket should be catered to, which means that we should have dumb sockets at every location. So every charging site should have CHAdeMO, should have Type 2, should have AC rapid charging, should have CCS, should have 16 amp commando, the whole shebang. It's not that expensive to install the lower current ones. And I like your idea of having a system where the cars come in and depending on the number of cars, depends on how quickly you charge. But I can also see that causing problems, quality of service, and then you're like contention like you'd have on the internet. You know, I've got a 20 meg service, but only if my neighbours are not surfing the internet or playing games at the same time. I'd hate that. I really would. Bosses, when I asked the question about bosses leading by example, I meant bosses actually going, you know what? I want to have an electric car and I want my company to have an electric car and I want my employees to drive electric. Therefore, we're all going to go electric. And putting in infrastructure at the office, putting in support for employees who want to drive electric, whether it be some kind of financial package or tax help or whatever. But I think more bosses should actually do that and drive their own cars, because then their employees, screwing up that word today, will follow suit. Regarding your fuel cell EV extender hybrid idea, I love it. I think it's brilliant. The only challenge I might see there is that fuel cell stacks are really still quite expensive to produce, even the small ones. And would you really want to lug around a fuel cell in your EV all the time for when you want to go long distances? I mean, it's the same as this car. It's got an engine in it that we lug around most of the time. We don't need it most of the time because we drive on electric mode. The same problem. So maybe what would be the solution is to require automakers to actually design their cars so that you could whack a fuel cell extender in. So you could add an extra battery pack. And what you would do is say, okay, you have to design your car so that it can accept power while the vehicle is moving. And then you just whack in whatever range extender you want, whether it's an extra battery pack, an FCV, or some technology we haven't even thought of yet. But what do I want to talk to you today about, Mark? I want to talk to you about the way that we travel. You see, I've just come back from Bratislava, as you know, and I flew with a very well-known Irish airline who has a rather strict baggage policy. They've got the smallest baggage allowance of any airline in Europe, and you have to pay really, really high prices if you want to take extra bags with you. The tickets are very low, but then they kind of whack it on with luggage prices. And I didn't want to have to pay money for luggage, so I had to pare down what I was taking with me. I had to take, the very bare minimum. I took my toiletries. I took a change of underwear. I took the basic camera equipment, my laptop, and I managed to squeeze it all in one bag. And it got me thinking. I grew up in the middle of nowhere and I grew up in a family with no car. And as I've sort of started to drive cars more, I've become lazy about what I take. Should we, if we're thinking about eco-minded future and green transport, should we actually be encouraging people to take less stuff with them? It would be a way of stopping people driving big SUVs because they wouldn't need the space if they weren't taking all that stuff with them. Be interested to see what you think. Have a great weekend. Get better, because I know you're not feeling very well, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye, Transport Evolved. Bye, Mark.